Stage. There we go. Can you guys hear me now? Let me know if you can hear me, bro. Forgot you if you don't. Oh, good now, yeah. Okay, perfect. You can't hear me. You sure? You sure, Mo? You should be able to hear me now. Anyways, my webcam is broken, so I cannot put a webcam on. That's one of the main reasons I have not been live for a while. But I need to order a new webcam. Anyways, I just wanted to give you guys a little update on Walaikum Salam Sabor. How are you doing, bro? Wanted to give you guys, a quick little update on pretty much what's happening in the markets. Right now, it's all doom and gloom, obviously. Sentiment is at all-time worst. Bitcoin, surprisingly, Bitcoin has held the 200-day moving average for quite a while now, which is quite surprising. I mean, look, kind of wicked below, but it's always been above, even on the weekly. It's always held above the 200-day, which is a good sign. The 200-day is important. I think the 50-week is the most important. Can we go there? It's not guaranteed. And one of the reasons is because, one of the main reasons I think we probably won't go there is because if you go on Polymarket, which, the market makers will definitely look at different statistics on where most retail are expecting the, Bitcoin or the crypto market to go to, and it most likely won't happen. So Polymarket, it says roughly around 65 to 70% of people expect 100K, which, within the next couple of months. So it probably won't happen. I think market makers, because there's so much shorts compared to longs, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, after the Fed announces QT, it's too obvious. So what people do is people put on 30, 40, 50x longs, and market makers are not going to want to pay them. So they liquidate them. After every good news, Binance and these market makers will flush out all the longs, and they stockpile a bunch of shorts in order to fuel the next rally higher. Now, apart from this, one of the biggest, if not the biggest contribution to the recent dump in crypto across BTC, altcoins, etc., is the TGA account. I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but the TGA account is basically $1 trillion. This is way too high to what it is normally. Now, just this month alone, in October, just in October, they took out, or they sucked out, around 2 to 300 billion out of the system, out of the markets. And you guys know Bitcoin crypto is ran specifically on liquidity. And in 1 month, from when you suck out 150 to 200 billion, you're going to see everything come crashing down, because it's just how it is. Stock market does not rely on liquidity because it's one of the safest assets to invest into. It has a good track record. Bitcoin does not have that track record and solely relies on liquidity. Now, on the bright side, and another thing that I've been telling you guys for a very long time is a majority of the system is held up by government spending. And when the government gets shut down, you're most likely going to see that spending get cut off. And then if they're spending billions, some of that money is getting put back into the markets. That money has to go somewhere, and it comes back into the markets. There's liquidity for the banks. And since that stopped, banks have been struggling. Crypto has been struggling. Anything that relies on liquidity struggles. Gold doesn't really rely on liquidity. That's why gold's doing a decent amount, I think. But anyways, I think the most important reason why we're going down is, Besson, clearly, they're playing the Democrats and the Republicans, they're playing a very, very weird game right now. On one end, if they keep sucking liquidity out, this was just a few days ago, right? They already just took out another 20, 30 billion out. On one end, I think what the Trump administration is trying to do is very, very simple, right? They're trying to bring inflation down, because most of inflation comes from government spending. They're trying to bring unemployment up, so that fuels or forces power to cut rates, because next year they have to refinance a lot of this debt, and they need it on a cheaper interest rate. So they save hundreds of billions of dollars, right? So the Fed is obviously independent of the government. They don't really care what goes on with the government, and vice versa. So when this goes to this high, this is the highest it's been in many, many years. The last time it was even this high was in April 2022. That's a lot of liquidity. This was after QE. It started to take some out of the TGA account, use it, and then it started draining back up. And that was kind of marked the local top at that time. But as soon as the government opens up again, you're going to see a fresh wave of 2 to 3 to 400 billion hit the markets again. And you're going to see Bitcoin, altcoins, everything go significantly higher. I do think there is going to be one more pump before we go into a mini bear market. The reason I say mini bear market is because last time the Fed ended QT, there was a little slump in crypto in 2019 that they ended QT, and there was a little slump for about 6 months in crypto where altcoins had that one initial rally and then they kind of sold off. And then, the pandemic hit. And then when obviously the Fed started doing mass QE. But what is Powell saying recently? A lot of people, I think a lot of people mistake QE with trillions and trillions of dollars, instant printing. That's mass QE. There's different levels of QE. In 2019, after the repo crisis, the Fed started to do 60 billion buybacks of treasury bills every single month. That's 60 billion hitting the market every single month. And that's liquidity. It's not crazy amounts of liquidity, but it's still liquidity. And next year, I do think, they will have to expand their balance sheet, which in other words is QE, right? That's what they have to do because they have to match GDP, the economy. If the economy is doing well, they have to match it on their balance sheet. This is just how all this works. So I do think in terms of the crazy alt season, I don't think we're going to see it this year. I still think we'll get a decent pump, but the crazy old season everyone's looking for, like the 2020 style, the 2017 style, I don't think we're going to see that this year. You're going to see that when QE hits the markets. I still think we'll have a decent pump. I think Ethereum will very, very likely, go above a new all-time high, maybe 5.5K, maybe 6K. And that would still give us a decent pump, maybe something similar to maybe 2023, 2024, or something similar, to 2024, end of 2024, November, December times. I think we will see something like that. I don't think we'll see anything crazy. I still think as long as the government shutdown continues, I see, dominance slowly climb higher, very slowly. Right now, dominance is in this rising wedge formation, which is a bearish formation. Eventually, you either have to break or come down. I do think it'll probably maybe retest one more time back up to 62. It's very, very possible, just because of maybe a bank goes down or something happens. Is very possible. You have to keep on the cards. This is why we always say keep 10 to 20 to 30% cash on the side, just because of uncertainty. And this year has been full of uncertainty, mainly because of Trump. Anyways, let's continue on. Another thing that there's a lot of noise on crypto right now on the banking system. There's a lot of noise. All the banks, the Fed is injecting 50 billion into the banking system, etc. Yes, they are injecting, and there's obviously a very clear scarce in liquidity in the markets right now. And this is probably why altcoins most of them are all-time lows, because there's a big demand for lack of liquidity. Well, there's a lack of liquidity and more demand for liquidity, right? Once that TGA account gets put back into the markets, you're going to see a decent pump across the board. And the fact that Trump and China has made a deal now, I don't really think we see any headwinds in terms of the tariff for at least another 3 to 4 months. Not anything that matters, right? I mean, if they put a Trump on some random country, no one's going to give a shit. I mean, a tariff on some random country, they're not going to care. The most important one was Trump and China. That's it. That was the most important one. That deal has been made. So now market makers are going to be, just chilling around these regions. I think they're going to stockpile so much shorts here. Roughly, I think right now there's about 20 to 15 billion in shorts, and that is being stockpiled here. And I think the longer we consolidate here, the more bearish people will become. I mean, look, this guy's already fucking bearish, bro. Where is he? The guy in the start. Where's he going? Bull run is over, bro. The more bull run over posts you see, the more bullish you should get, for at least for one more pump. Now, did these pump? No one knows, right? No one knows if the pump is going to be a left translated cycle where we see something like this, right? Maybe to 130 to 140 cycle, doesn't matter, somewhere around these regions. Or we see a slightly, right translated cycle and then roll over. But I still think we get one more pump towards the end of the year, and that will be the final pump before we roll over, and BTC will most likely come down to maybe 60K to 80K for like about 6 months, like a mini bear market, 6 to 8 months. And I think from there, once power gets replaced and the new Fed comes in, I think they're going to end up cutting rates aggressively and potentially doing like maybe 1 to 3 trillion QE, and that will still give alts a decent pump. What time range are we expecting a blow off top? If the market does not pump by December, you're gonna just have to wrap it up, bro, honestly. Like, there's no point holding or dreaming or hoping. And if the market does not pump by December, it just wrap it up, bro. Just cut your losses and get out, because save whatever cash you have for the bear market, because when the bear market hits, you're gonna get 99% discount on top of the price that we have now. So ideally, we're running out of space right now, out of time. I think that we could stretch into Q1 2026, maybe Jan, maybe Feb. If we're lucky, maybe March. But we are running out of time. The stock market is very, very high right now. And the fact that Bitcoin is not catching up is, mainly because of the liquidity access. I think once government shutdown comes back, Bitcoin, the thing is, stock market can go really high. It makes no difference, because Bitcoin can catch up in the space of a week or two. Bitcoin moves very, very fast, because you don't need a lot of money to move Bitcoin. From here to here, that was in the space of a few months. From down here to a new all-time high, look how fast we moved up from 107K all the way to 124K. That was in the space of 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks. It will happen very, very fast. So, I still think we'll go to about 130, 140-ish. Maybe if we're lucky, 150. But between 130 to 150 is the area that everyone should be looking to get out in the blow-off top. It will come. Whether it's you're always gonna get a bounce here. Bear markets does not just go in a straight line down. It's gonna be choppy. We'll go from down, right? Small bounce up, down, small bounce up, down, sometimes a big bounce up and then down. That's how it's always going to be, because if it just goes in a straight line, everyone's going to cash out. There's no one to, sell your bags to. It doesn't work like that. But ideally, by December, Bitcoin should make a move by December. Because in December, QT ends, and the last time QT ended, it took the Fed about 24 days in order for them to start QE. It wasn't crazy QE, but it was still QE, where they were buying back Treasury bills. And this is something that Powell has already said. It said, we're using excess cash from the MBS securities, whatever, MBS mortgage-backed securities, to buy back short-term Treasury bills. That is basically another form of stealth QE. Whether, you can form it wherever you want. That's basically stealth QE. When you say another push before bear or whatever, would it be like last March? What kind of pump would that be? Well, I don't know what kind of pump it'll be, bro, but it will be a decent pump. If $200 to $300 billion hit the economy in a space, everything's gonna pump a decent amount. We would have pumped over here. Bitcoin went to break out, retested, and then fucking Binance's shit just collapsed, which is quite ironic, because at the same time the Fed, TGA account was getting drained. I just think all of this shit is just, insider type of thing, where they go up to Binance and they go up to the fucking biggest exchange and tell them, we're draining liquidity, we need Bitcoin at this price, and then Binance will find a way to crash it there. That's what I think probably happens. Saying long-term holders got punished this cycle is just pure retarded, because you're thinking on a 1-year time frame. Long-term holders got punished this year, not through the cycle. The cycle is not 1 year. The cycle is 4 years or however long the cycle has been since 2022. I'm still up 12x on Tau. I'm up 8x on Injective, right? And these are my biggest bags. I'm up almost 6x on Ondo. I'm up a decent chunk on BTC. When you say long, I'm up like 16x or some shit, 18x on Ondo, on Relio, sorry. So when you say long-term holders being punished, is not that doesn't make it. Long-term holders got punished this year specifically, not the entire cycle. There's many coins that I hold are still in massive profits despite how shit the market is today. And there's some coins that are down. That's how it is. When you say long-term holders being punished, how can you be punished when if you are a long-term holder of, let's say, Tau, right, or any other high cap? Well, is it Tau BTC? What the fuck is this? Let's look at Ondo, for example, right? Let's zoom out on a weekly chart. If you bought Ondo here, or even over here, you're not really punished, are you? You're either going to be break even. Even if you bought here in 2024, you still would be in break even, if not slight profits, even after the biggest liquidation event in history of crypto. So there's no such thing as, long-term holders being punished. That's retarded. Because throughout the 4 years, there was plenty of opportunities to take profits. That doesn't work like that, my friend. This year specifically, long-term, well, not even this year, the last 4 months, long-term holders got punished. Only the last 4 months. And price action is temporary. If we get a decent pump, and I tell people this all the time, people don't believe it, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months of price action can be taken out in the space of 1 to 2 weeks. Look at when they had this crazy pump over here from the lows, it literally took out like 8 months of price action in 2 weeks. 1 candle, 2, that's 2 weeks candles. And that's 2 weeks. You would have basically got a break even if you bought in September, even August of 2024, sorry. That's back to break even right here. That was all in the space of just 2 weeks candles. That's how quick price action can change. Obviously, it just came back down because the market got fucked afterwards. But market conditions are temporary. Price action is temporary. Everything can change. Right now, it's all doom and gloom. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, could be back green candles and everyone's happy again. That's how it is. So the market's been all year. But to answer your question, you have to do both this year. Like I traded this year. Trading made me a decent amount. Like any losses I made it back with trading regardless. And that's something I told people back in February, that you have to trade this year. You have to keep cash on the side and trade. Doesn't mean it has to be leverage trading. It doesn't make sense. You don't need leverage trading. You do spot trading. How many opportunities have we had this year where the market went into extreme greed and back into extreme fear? If you bought in extreme fear and sold in greed, you would have made money. Look how many times fucking Trump caused uncertainty this year. Those are all trading opportunities. You could have even bought high caps, the whole time, and you would have made a good amount of money the entire year. So both, I think you should do both. It is if it wasn't for hindsight, because a lot of this shit is hindsight, right? Trading the entire year would have been perfect. That would have been the best scenario. But you don't know that, because throughout the year, how many times did we get the glimpse of everything was about to go parabolic? We had it like 2-3 times at least. 2-3 times. We had it in April, after the April pump, this pump over here. We had it over here, and then we had it over here. That's 3 times where we thought the market's about to go parabolic. And then boom, some massive fucking uncertainty shit happens afterwards. And this is, in hindsight, it makes sense to trade all year. But when you're up here, you're not thinking the way you're thinking now when we're down here. You're thinking everything's about to go parabolic, right? So, and if you're just trading, imagine this never happened, this candle never happened, and the Binance API didn't fuck up, and we continue to go higher up here. Would you have not been pissed at yourself if you bought here and sold over here, or sold over here? because you traded and you missed the bulk of the move. So if you do both, it kind of evens out. But in hindsight, yes, if I was to go back 5-6 months ago or a year ago, and I had the same knowledge I had now, I would have been trading all year. But it's just hindsight talking is pointless. Well, if BTC goes up, all coins will follow. Dominance is likely to come down soon because it's in a rising wedge formation, which is always a bearish formation. This is not a bullish formation. Every single look at this. This is the exact same thing. This is a rising wedge formation. It will always eventually break down. A rising wedge formation breaks down. This breaks up, right? So when you see this, it breaks up. When you see this, it breaks down. You ideally want this somewhere around 57 and below, because then the market will start to go down from there. Well, all start to pump loads. When this pump was happening back in June, July, August times, June, July, April, after April, but also doing really well then. Retail, look, people, you gotta realize, my friend, you guys are all retail. We're all retail. We're not institutions, bro. When you say retail, it's always going to be just like anything, right? The same way when gold was down here, when it was down here, no one gave a shit. And then when it came up here, you've seen waves of people lining up to buy gold. That's how it is. That's how retail works. The people that make the money is the people that bought down here. Retail comes up here. So when people say, oh, do you think retail will come back? Retail will come back when BTCs are all-time highs. Retail does not make the bulk of the move. The crypto space makes the bulk of the move. The people in crypto make the bulk of the move, and retail comes in as exit liquidity. You guys now remember, as soon as a day later, when people were lining up to buy gold, gold had a 6% candle the next day. That's what retail do. So when Bitcoin pumps to 130, 140, whatever it goes to next, right? Whatever blow off top, maybe it's back just slightly above the previous all-time high. Some retail will return, yes. There will be a fresh wave of people coming into crypto, of course. You'll hear it. My friend telling me to buy Bitcoin, this, that. I think if it wasn't for power last year, that was the peak of retail coming in December to Jan. That was retail coming in because everyone in the world knew about crypto, mainly because of Trump. Trump always a pro-president, pro-crypto president, blah, 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 with this massive move up. This was the bulk of retail over here. And then because they got fucked, most of them have left. So retail comes in at the end, my friend. When people say retail to FOMO, retail comes in right at the end. They don't make the bulk of the move. The bulk of the move happens by big investors, not by retail. Retail just comes in at the end. Just like any person that's new to crypto, you never heard about crypto down here or down here. You heard about it up here or up here. Retail come at the end. When you see retail come in, just start fucking selling more. Yeah, but you gotta remember, my friend, the market don't owe us nothing. The markets don't owe us an old season. We just have to do as if the market gives us no old season, it is what it is, bro. They don't owe us nothing. Whether it's a 2x pump, a 3x pump from here, a 50% pump, it doesn't matter. That's just, we have to just go with what's in front of us. A lot of us believe or think just because the market's being shit all year that they owe us an old season. No one owes us nothing. That's how you think in crypto, bro. You have to be real. No one owes us nothing. We don't know, the market don't owe us an old season, right? Well, we can get one when there's liquidity in the markets, when at least a little bit of liquidity from the TGA comes back into the markets. I think a lot will come back. The reason I say a lot will come back is because the government has been shut down for so long. They're going to need a fresh wave of liquidity. I think anywhere in the realms of 300 to 500 billion from this TGA account will be used, back into the market. It will get back injected because the government's been shut for so long. To operate everything again, you need a bunch of money. And that's what the TJ account is for, like the emergency money at the Fed. Anyway, this big whale, the whale with 100% rate, has increased his BTC long position to 118 million. It's also got a long position on ETH and Solana as well. And you got to keep in mind as well, guys, we have all the ETFs that's going to be accepted after the government wakes up again. So when the government's open again, a lot of this depends on how quick the government opens up again, because that fresh wave of liquidity will hit the markets, and there's going to be a fat stack of liquidity, and you're going to see everything go parabolic, and you're going to see everyone's going to be like, oh, I told you so. All the bears are going to be sitting there with the fucking... The best thing to do now is to very slowly DCA and then put some trades on. Because, whether it's high cap trades, mid cap trades, whatever it is, right? There's plenty of opportunities in the markets. Plenty. Put some trades on. If some coin that you have conviction in is a bit low, DCA them small. $50 here, $50 there, $50 in 4 days, $50 in 5 days. It doesn't matter. Like, don't DCA $50 every day. Unless you got cash coming in consistently, you have to look after your liquidity. And the reason I always say 10, 20 to 30% cash, anywhere between 15 to 30% cash on the side, is because if you haven't learned all year of how much uncertainty has been happening, when are you ever going to learn? If any moment Trump can just start fucking having a bipolar attack and putting extra tariffs on China, if you know that, and that's been happening all year, why don't you have cash on the side? If you have cash on the side, you don't panic. We just got given some of the best opportunity of our lives on some of these fucking high caps that went all the way down here, or even Ondo that went all the way down here. These are crazy opportunities, and the only way you take advantage of them is if you have money on the side, cash on the side. An oil pump. When you look, there's always going to be coins doing 20, 30, 50x, bro. Like, I'll give you an example. Pay AI. We got in the sold section under $1 million, sold after like 2-3x, and then a month later or a couple of weeks later, it went on to do a 60x. There's plenty of opportunities to trade in the markets. People, that's why I always say, if you have cash on the side, you're actively looking for trades. If you don't, you're just going to be sitting there on your hands, and that's the worst feeling, is when people say, oh, my portfolio is bleeding. Yes, that's because you're not looking after your cash, DCing too fast. And if you guys have not noticed, a lot of these altcoins that keep going lower and lower, if you're not trading, making some money on the side or making some sort of money back, you're gonna feel a lot worse, a lot more bearish than someone that's trading, building up their portfolio. Whether even if it's 30 USDT a day, let's say you make 30 to 50 USDT a day, or every couple of days, that's still a decent amount of money in 5 to 6 months' time. You might get lucky on one, and it might do a 5 to 10x, might do a 20x, and then you went down, your altcoin's down 50%, but you just made a 5 to 10x on this trade. Now you break even or you're slightly in profits. It's both. If the people that want it will always chase it, and it trade. There's both in the group. There's so much trading opportunities in the group. It's crazy. I just gave 3 trades yesterday. ZF pumped 30, 40%. These are all in the space of one night. Fucking 4 pumped 20%. That's 2 trades right there. It's money either way. And tomorrow you get another trade. The next day you get another trade. Just do spot. You don't have to do leverage. But yeah, I think to be profitable, 20 to 30x is a bit far-fetched. You don't have to look. Because when you're coming towards the end of the cycle, you don't need to chase the 20 to 30x's. Just chase the 5x's, the 6x's, the 3x's, the 5. Because at the end of the day, when you're at the end of the cycle, you don't have the leverage to chase the 20 to 30x's. You can chase those in a bear market. Like I said, it's going to be a mini bear market. It's not going to be fucking 2 years long bear market. It's going to be like 6 to 8 months latest max. In 6 to 8 months, when everything's crashing, that is the best time to be in the markets. And every cash you have, you're gonna get shit 90% lower than what it would be, a few weeks ago, a month ago. Something that would have cost you 30K will probably cost you like $300 or maybe $3,000, whatever, right? But that's the opportunities you get, and you want to be having as much cash during that opportunity. So if you chase the 20 to 30x's, you might just walk away from becoming a bag holder, bro. That's why you have to be careful. I don't really see as you don't need to be that profitable now, my friend, because Ricky, you know what's happening or what's coming in 2026. In 2026, we're more than likely going to get some sort of QE or massive stimulus because it's midterms next year, and Trump wants everything doing decent, or if not really well, before midterms. That's why he wants to get Powell out as soon as possible because the market wants interest rate cuts, and and the Powell's not giving it us. When the new Fed takes over, you're going to get fast interest rate cuts. You're probably going to be cutting stupid amounts. Every fucking couple of months, they'll cut 50 basis points, whatever. Inflation by then will most likely be contained. Inflation from tariffs, a one-time hike. It's not, it's not something that continuously. By that time, you got to keep in mind, Trump is using his tariffs as a form of chain vest discount code. Man said chain vest discount code. Merkel, is that you? Yo, you guys hear about the London stabbing today? Fucking crazy, man. Two people just went on a fucking random stabbing spree. Yeah, I know this is Merkel. I know it's you, Merkel, bro. Yo, but two random guys in the UK in a train station inside a train where the doors are locked just went around stabbing random people, bro. In the UK, you need a fucking armored plate protection, bro, just to walk around. You don't know when you might get stabbed randomly, man. People in the UK are so weird. But anyways, the whole goal for this year specifically is to, bro, even if you make 50% on your fucking portfolio, it doesn't matter, bro. It doesn't have, even if you make 60% or 2x, whatever, bro. As long as you walk away with some money, like I said, it's going to be a mini bear market. It's not going to be a big one. And the reason is because by the time Powell leaves and the new Fed comes in, they're going to start QE at some point, bro. Because midterms are next year, Trump is known for making everything go parabolic, bro. Ideally, you'd want Bitcoin pumping a decent amount by December. Bro. Ideally. We'll know anyways in the coming weeks, bro. We'll buy anti. Well, you're gonna need it, bro. Nah, if you're coming as a tourist, you'll be fine, bro. No rush at the moment, guys. Like we'll find out in the coming. As soon as the government opens up, you go and see everything just pump up hard. Because liquidity will come back. I think you might have a new account, Merkel. I don't know why your name isn't coming up. But like I said, TGA account, just in the last month alone, have sucked out 200 billion out of the economy, out of the system. What that means is, 200 billion is a lot of money. All you need for crypto to go down 10-15% is someone just sells like 10 billion. That's it. Even if 10% of that money gets sold in crypto, sucked out of the system, crypto markets, that's a big hit for the crypto markets. Crypto markets are a very small market in comparison to a lot of other stuff. Yeah, but if you need a 3x to break even, you need to start trading, bro. You need to start trading. Maybe you inject some fucking cash in the markets, bro, and start fucking trading shit, man. If you're just sitting on your hands, you're not doing nothing, bro. You're not gonna make no money, are you? You need to do both. You have to actively do both. Yeah, look, our low caps are quite strong in terms of fundamentals. I think a few of them will outperform some of the others, but that will make up for the outperformance. If one or two underperforms, but a few outperforms, you'll be in good hands. It's fine. I know quite a few have a lot of stuff You know, a lot of these altcoins, most altcoins right now, don't want to be releasing any news because it's all going to go to waste. Like, for example, Bricken has like a good exchange listing, but they're not going to drop it now because it will go to waste. And they'll do a bunch of marketing as well. Like Bricken Sensei, I know they're going to do a bunch of marketing. I'm trying to help out with their marketing. You know, I think they once their launchpad is fully out, I think it is out now, they're going to get back into the marketing phase. You know, for a lot of these projects, if you do like a trading competition, you're going to see a decent pump in the charts because people will go and trade it, especially on BNB or whatever. Trading competitions, I think, are the best for actually making a token pump. But yeah, like I said, bro, for now, if you're not doing anything, like just look for some narratives, short-term narratives. Like look at that X402. X402 is a great narrative. I put a trade on Hint. It pumped 50%. 50% on 2K is not bad. But you could do that every couple of days, though. That's the thing. A lot of you guys need to get into this trading shit, but honestly, man, you make so much money on the side, man. Like if one of your coin goes down 20-30%, but you make 20-30% on the trade, you basically break even. You're not losing money, but you're gaining money consistently. Your portfolio is slowly growing, if not, not losing as much. It's not hard. It's not fucking hard to trade, bro. It's literally so easy, especially spot trading. All you need is 500 to 1K. You need 1K, maybe 2K. 1K is more than enough. Any other questions, guys? I need to go eat, man. I'm hungry, man. So yeah, I think as soon as the government opens up, everything's going to explode very fast. You're going to get the final phase, the final pump. And because there won't be any uncertainty, I think the markets will go a lot higher. Because even this bank bullshit is all BS. Like this bank crisis, this bank, where is it? It's down here, but let me show you guys. People talking about this as, oh my God, it's so crazy, bro. It's not that crazy, trust me. It's not that crazy. Yeah, I mean, look, in terms of rugging, I don't think any project of ours will rug. Like, there's no such. They'll go down a bit more, but you gotta keep in mind, if we go into a bear market now, right? If we go into a bear market now, you're not going to see as much pain as if dominance was down here than up here. This is something that people have to realize as well. Let's say we go into a mini bear market for 6 months, right? Go into a mini bear market, you're not going to see 90-80% more down on alts because dominance is up here, it's not down here. If dominance was down here and we go into a bear market, you're going to see massive crashes across the board. But if dominance is up here, you're not going to see that. You're not going to see that. But ultimately, dominance right now is looking bearish. And I think dominance, if not by mid to late November, earliest December will top. It doesn't matter what it is at that time. That will be the top, and it will start to free fall at that point. Because you gotta look, market front runs everything. If the end of QT happens, right, which is happening in December, market will front run that. If there's going to be liquidity injection from the government, market will front run that. The reason that even after Trump and China has made a deal, the market's not pumping is because of this. $1 trillion, or at least 400 to 500 billion, got sucked out just in the last 2 months alone, which is crazy. Since September, right, 200 billion, since September, 300 billion has been taken out of the market. It's a lot. Yeah, this it is definitely a learning lesson, bro. Definitely, this is. Look, in crypto, you're always going to lose some money, of course, but as long as you use it as a learning lesson, I think that's the most important part. I mean, it's hard to maneuver specifically. Like if you look on paper, right, after the halving, you expect everything to be really bullish. you expect everything to be bullish. This is something that you have to realize. Historically, it's always been bullish after the halving year. But this year, this has been fucked up across the board. Like you get a glimpse of the market potentially just ripping. And then Trump comes out and says some bullshit and everything drops again. Fucking Binance doing some bullshit. But, another good thing is the Clarity Act, and the Market Structure Act should be passed by the end of the year. All the ETFs will go live. I think there's enough catalyst to give us a decent pump on altcoins, at least a decent pump. Whether it's 1 month, whether it's a month and a half, it doesn't matter. Like whatever narrative takes off within the next month, like big narrative, bro, just trade the shit out of that narrative. Just trade. It's gonna be, bro, just like in December, there was thousands of AI agents launching, hundreds of them. There's gonna be hundreds of coins launching with that narrative. So whichever the narrative is, just trade the shit out of it, bro. Just trade it. New coin launches, has a decent website, just fucking get in. Because 9 times out of 10 it will pump. As long as the website's decent. If they have a docs theme, that's a fucking bonus, bro. You should be gaining even more during euphoria because people just buy anything, bro. That's how it always works. In greed, extreme greed, people buy anything. They don't give a shit. As long as it has, a decent website, has the narrative in there, that's it. So we just wait, man. We wait. I'll update you guys consistently. I'll update you guys consistently on what's happening, bro. The next step is just wait for the government to open up. I think it will happen within the next couple of weeks. The next week or two, the government should be, because the votes are getting fairly close now. Fairly close. And I still think we'll get the rate cut in December. I don't know why Powell is waffling, but more than likely we'll get that rate cut in December. I really don't understand why. He's right now a 70% chance that we get a rate cut in December. I mean, bro, people are not stupid, man. Powell's not. The people that Fed, they can clearly see all the layoffs that's happening right now. That's affecting the jobs market because the layoffs is what kept the jobs market from fucking up because, actual jobs opening and opportunities isn't there anymore. Job opens is not there. There's not a lot of jobs or not a lot of people offering work right now. And the fact that layoffs are picking up makes it 10 times worse. I think in the next month or two, because the government's been shut down, you're going to see a decent drop in inflation. You will, because most of inflation comes from government spending. If government's shut down and not spending, but they can't spend anymore, and the fact that they're sucking a bunch of liquidity out of the markets in the TGA account, that by design will bring inflation down and GDP as well, unfortunately. But the Trump administration is trying to create weakness, so Powell is forced to cut. Because they have their plans next year when Powell goes. When Powell goes, I guarantee you're going to see a massive pump in crypto the next day. It will just happen. But 2026 is looking promising. It's looking very similar to 2019, bro. Look at 2019. Let me show you guys what happened in 2019. 2019, right over here. Here's 2019. Let's have a look. Right here, right? This is the 2019 era, bro. Market was rallying, while in QT, surprisingly, right? The bear market lows, whatever, market was rallying. And then QT ended, but markets actually went down a bit, right? So imagine this is the big flush we had recently. You get one more pump, right? In 2019, get one more pump, and then you go into a mini bear market. But at the same time, Fed has ended QT, right? So this Fed ended QT was kind of the cycle lows at that point. Fed ended QT, they started doing small amounts of QE, 60 million a month, but the market wasn't really going anywhere until here. Towards end of 2019, markets rallied, but then the pandemic hit and then mass QE came and everything exploded. I think we're in 2019, right? So we get this one last pump, and then we go into that recession phase, which could last, 6 months, maybe 7 months, maybe 5 months, who knows, right? And then I think when the new Fed comes in, interest rates are going to start getting cut, easing is going to start to come in, because it's either they start easing or they risk everything collapsing. Because a lot of people say we're going into a recession, blah, blah, blah. I think we've already been in a recession since COVID. is, it takes very, very long time for them to come out of that recession. And I think slowly we're coming out of that recession. Everything started to kind of fix up behind closed doors. There's obviously a liquidity crisis, not a crisis here, but there's a liquidity shortage. But I think next year will be the explosive year for altcoins. I still think we get this one last exit pump, because one of the main reasons I think we get this exit pump is because Congress now is trying to introduce a bill, right? So they're trying to introduce a bill to ban politicians from trading stocks and crypto. Now, we know a lot of these politicians hold stocks and a lot of them hold crypto. Do you honestly think, they don't need the exit liquidity to get out by the end of the year before we go into a bear market? This is one of the main reasons I think we get one more pump, is because all these politicians gonna need exit liquidity to get out. So they're gonna have to pump this shit up. Bon, listen, I don't know if you're new to crypto, Justin, right? Oh, from BTC. Nah, fuck no, bro. You're not gonna get 5x on BTC, bro. BTC, the money that could have been made on BTC is done. That money, that big wave of money for BTC is done. BTC is now a commodity, and it's now the 7th largest asset group class or asset in the world. So that the chances of you getting a 5x on BTC from the lowest Bitcoin will go next year is roughly 60, I think maybe 70 to 80k. 65 to 80k is the lowest Bitcoin's gonna go. You might get a 3x or 2x. You'll likely get a 3 to 4x on Bitcoin next cycle. Maybe a 3x if you're lucky. Maybe a bit more, who knows. But the chances of you making stupid money on Bitcoin specifically is over. That age is over, bro. Bitcoin was a generational buy here, maybe even here. But like I said, the higher this shit goes, the lower chances of it going too low again. Like if it goes to 130 to 40k, roughly Bitcoin goes down 70 to 80%. That is before. Now it probably goes down 60% to 65%, let's say, just because there's more demand for it now, and it's obviously mainstream and it's deemed as a commodity. There's a lot more market structure, the adoption that's happening. More people want it, and they're going to be buying on the way down. It's not going to be as bad as before, in my opinion. And I think we'll probably come down here somewhere. In terms of how high we're going to go, it's impossible to know, my friend. 5x, I think, is a bit far-fetched. I think a 3x to a 4x is reasonable for BTC next cycle. But bro, like, is stupid to be in Bitcoin next cycle. Like, you should always have some Bitcoin in your portfolio, but if it's going to be an easing cycle, like you can see the signs of an easing cycle, you shouldn't be majority of Bitcoin unless your portfolio is huge and you only want to buy and not think about anything else. But the thing is, bro, everyone says that now because of how shit the market is now. I guarantee you, when they hear this altcoin doing 50x, that altcoin doing a 20x, 30x, bro, they're going to get greedy and do the same shit again all over again. Guarantee you, bro. This is human nature. I don't see why people are, the same way everyone wanted to get into altcoins because of how much they pumped in fucking 2020. This cycle is the same thing. Most people are going to get to BTC next cycle. Well, alts will most likely outperform BTC because it's going to be easing cycle next cycle. Or at least after the bear. That's what I think, at least. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Even if they're the bear market lows, if they're down like 90, 95%, we'll just keep them. Like, there's no point selling for 90% down or whatever, bro. Right? But if it's 10, 20, 30% down after a decent pump in December, whatever, just get rid of them, bro, honestly. If there's signs that the cycle top is in, just get rid of them. Because, even if you cut 20% out, it doesn't matter, because when you come down here and everything's minus 99%, you're going to get crazy discounts across the board. You're going to get fat discounts regardless. For the same amount of money, you could buy like fucking 1 million more tokens. It's all about the amount of tokens you can get, not about how much money you have. Because from FTX, right? So from FTX, for example, from the FTX crash, within a few months, January, February, right? I remember this very vividly. I got into AGIX and I got into VIA and I got into a few of the other ones. I think I got into DMTR or one of the shit coins. Bro, within 2 to 3 months, they pumped 30 to 50x. VIA AGIX pumped 20x. Very, very fast, off 10x or some shit. But VIA done a 20 to 30x within the space of a month after the FTX crash. January, February 2023 was AI agent or AI season. AI season. So in that phase of 2 months, fucking AGIX pumped literally 20x and VIA pumped 30 to 50x in that space of 2 months because you front run a narrative. That's what happens. Next cycle, the best narrative to get into is very vivid is data centers, right? Because what's NVIDIA doing today? NVIDIA is investing billions, or I think almost $1 trillion or some shit in data centers, or 100 billion into data centers. So clearly there's a need for data centers, right? So Deepin's a good one to get into because Deepin's been dead for so long. It's going to come back because of how big AI is, you need Deepin. Another one is robotics. Robotics is going to be huge next cycle. Why? Because we've already had AI agents. We've already had generative AI. So what's next? The next is AI, robotics, ASI, robotics, whatever you want to call it. That's going to be massive next cycle. That's quantum computing is another narrative you should definitely keep an eye out for because quantum computing is going to be massive. It will happen very fast. Even if there's no quantum chips or whatever, bro. Even just the rumors is enough to see a decent pump. And then obviously, maybe gaming next year could do really well as well. Maybe gaming. Maybe gaming could be that one narrative that comes back. Because maybe GTA comes out or someone releases some crazy game. No one knows at the moment. But there's so many narratives. If you can front run them, you can make a lot of money very fast. If anyone was there after FTX, right? Anyone bought any AI coin, it could have been the shittest AI coin on the list. But if you just bought any of them, you would have made at least a 20x, at least in 2 months. So it's mostly about narratives. All pump next cycle. Yeah, I think all will still be around and it will have a bigger pump next cycle than this cycle. Because by that time, all supply will probably be like 40% in circulation. More than likely, I think right now is only 50% of circulation, right? So they've burned 50% of the supply. I think by next year, it'll probably be somewhere between 60% of the supply burnt. So it's going to be more scarce. Also, say, yeah, but like I said, no, 10x is too much more. Just get a 5x out of those and you're chilling. One of those will do really well. I think it'll probably be either Sensei or Statex. I think those two will do really well. Declan, how you doing, bro? Long time no see. How you been, my friend? Good to see you, my friend. Do you see adoption of crypto in the next 5 years? I mean, also utility if it's hard. In terms of adoption, we're getting the most adoption now already, mainly for BTC. But I think as more people, I think the most adoption we're going to get is RWA next year of what BlackRock is trying to do. And I think everyone, JP Morgan's now launching on tokenization, mainly stocks and bonds and all this other stuff. I think eventually everyone's going to go into tokenizing real estate. Real estate is going to be a main tokenization source. But eventually you will be able to tokenize anything. You can even tokenize your phone if you wanted to. Everything will eventually be tokenized, I think. That's why it's such a big sector. There's going to be so much shit. Yeah, Mugen, I think you should, man. Watch the video back, Mugen. I explained at the start. I explained to the audience or to you guys why we dump in. They've sucked out close to 300 billion since September out of the markets, and of course you're going to see a massive crash, right? So, but as soon as government opens up again, you're going to see TGA account drop massively. Something like this. You're going to see something like this. Massive drop in TGA. Because they need that money to fund the government again. So, and you can see all that money flush into the markets. The last time we had this, right, was in April. The April times. If you guys remember, TGA account was 600. TGA account was at 600, right? But they're running dry. Government spending was running dry, so they injected 300 billion out of this or whatever. And guess what happened? And then look, this is one of the best ways to find local tops and local bottoms. When this was in April, right, and it started to drop in May, April was the lows. In liquidity came back, and guess what happened to BTC in April? BTC going into May started to rally hard because liquidity was coming back. That's how easy it is, And then guess what happened in July? They've been just slowly sucking liquidity out, and all since July just been ain't done shit. And then now when government opens up again, you can see a fat crash again. You're going to see BTC most likely rally a bunch, and also going to follow. And that will be your last pump, in my opinion. That will be your last pump. There's always I think alts can continue to rally into Jan, yes. I think there's a high chance alts can rally into Jan. All right, guys, I'm going to go now. My food is ready. My food is ready, guys. I'm gonna order a new camera tonight, so I can fucking start live streaming again because it's actually quite fun live streaming. I can't lie. No more questions. Okay, but yeah, appreciate you, my friend. Appreciate all of you guys as per usual, man. You guys have been here for everything, bro. You guys are the real ones, man. Inshallah, we all get awarded by the end of this, man. Hopefully, all of us get awarded. So it has been a rough year, but honestly.